For more of this kind of content, you can subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment. Jake Martinez stared at his laptop screen, scrolling through the online pet adoption website for the third time that evening. His small apartment in downtown Portland felt emptier than usual after another day of remote work and video calls with colleagues he'd never met in person. The rain outside matched his mood perfectly. Jake had everything he thought he wanted. A decent job as a software developer, his own place, and enough savings to live comfortably. But comfort wasn't the same as happiness, and happiness certainly wasn't the same as companionship. Maybe a cat, he muttered, clicking through pictures of adorable kittens. Cats are independent, low maintenance. His finger hovered over the adoption application form. The website looked legitimate enough. Galactic Pet Solutions, with stellar reviews and a professional design. The prices seemed reasonable, and they offered same-day delivery within the city limits. What caught his attention was their slogan, "Find the perfect companion for your unique lifestyle." The form was surprisingly detailed. It asked about his living situation, work schedule, experience with pets, and even his personality traits. One question made him pause. Are you open to caring for a companion with special dietary needs? Jake shrugged and checked yes. How hard could it be to buy special cat food? He filled out the rest of the form, selected "Surprise me with the perfect match," and submitted his application, along with a deposit of $200. The confirmation email arrived instantly, promising delivery within 24 hours. That night, Jake slept better than he had in weeks, dreaming of a furry friend waiting for him when he got home from work. The next evening, Jake rushed home from his coffee shop office, expecting to find a pet carrier waiting outside his door. Instead, he found two people in dark suits standing in his hallway. The woman was Asian, probably in her 40s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, and had the bearing of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Mr. Martinez?" the woman asked, showing him an official-looking badge. "I'm Dr. Sarah Chen from the Department of Extraterrestrial Affairs. This is Commander Stone. We need to talk." Jake's first thought was that this was some kind of prank. "Department of what now?" "May we come in?" Dr. Chen's voice was gentle but urgent. "It's about your recent purchase from Galactic Pet Solutions." Something in her tone made Jake step aside and let them enter his apartment. Commander Stone immediately moved to the windows, checking the street below, while Dr. Chen sat down on his couch. "Mr. Martinez, I need you to understand that what I'm about to tell you will sound impossible," Dr. Chen began. "But your life may depend on believing me. The website you ordered from isn't what it appears to be." Jake sat down heavily in his desk chair. "What are you talking about?" "Galactic Pet Solutions is a front for an illegal alien trafficking operation," Commander Stone said, without turning from the window. "They don't sell pets, Mr. Martinez. They sell people." The words didn't make sense. Jake's brain refused to process them. Aliens? Like, from space? Dr. Chen nodded sadly. "We've been tracking this organization for months. They capture refugees from war-torn planets and sell them to humans who think they're buying exotic pets. The beings they traffic are intelligent, emotional creatures with their own cultures and languages." "But I just wanted a cat," Jake said weakly. "I know," Dr. Chen said, "and I'm sorry you've been drawn into this. But there's more. Your order has already been processed. A transport ship landed outside the city 3 hours ago. They're coming here tonight. Commander Stone's radio crackled. He listened for a moment, then turned to face them. They're moving. Black van, 2 blocks out. Dr. Chen stood up quickly. Mr. Martinez, when they arrive, you need to act normal. Accept the delivery. Once they leave, we'll extract you and the victim. If you refuse the delivery or seem suspicious, they'll likely kill both of you to eliminate witnesses. Jake felt like he was drowning. This is insane. This can't be real. I wish it wasn't, Doctor, Chen said, pulling out a small device that looked like a hearing aid. Wear this. We'll be listening, and we'll know when it's safe to move in. A knock at the door made them all freeze. Commander Stone pointed to the fire escape. Back exit, now. As Dr. Chen and the commander disappeared through his bedroom window, Jake stood alone in his living room, heart pounding, waiting to answer a door that would change everything he thought he knew about the universe. The knocking came again, more insistent this time. Jake's hands shook as he approached the door. Through the peephole, he saw 2 delivery workers in matching blue uniforms, standing beside a large metal container on a wheeled dolly. They looked completely normal, which somehow made everything worse. He opened the door, trying to keep his voice steady. Jake Martinez? Delivery from Galactic Pet Solutions, the shorter worker said, checking a tablet. Sign here, please. The container was about the size of a large refrigerator, made of brushed steel with ventilation grates near the top. Jake could hear something moving inside, a soft rustling that could have been an animal shifting in bedding. His signature looked shaky on the electronic pad. Feeding instructions are in the packet, the taller worker said, handing Jake a manila envelope. Important to follow them exactly. This one's got special needs. They wheeled the container into his living room, positioned it near the wall, and left without another word. Jake stood staring at the metal box, his heart hammering so hard he was sure Dr. Chen could hear it through the listening device. The container had a simple latch mechanism and a small viewing window at eye level, but the glass was dark from the inside. Jake approached slowly, unsure whether he wanted to see what was inside. A soft sound stopped him, not the rustling of an animal, but something that sounded distinctly like crying. Human crying, but with an odd musical quality that raised goosebumps on his arms. "Hello," Jake whispered, feeling ridiculous. The crying stopped immediately. Jake's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Wait for our signal. Don't open container until we're in position." He sat down on his couch, staring at the metal box and trying to wrap his mind around what Dr. Chen had told him. Aliens. Trafficking. His simple desire for companionship had somehow connected him to horrors he couldn't imagine. Another sound came from the container, softer this time. It sounded like someone trying very hard not to make noise, the kind of careful silence that came from fear. Jake couldn't take it anymore. He approached the container and peered through the small window. For a moment, he saw nothing but darkness. Then something moved, and he found himself looking into a pair of enormous violet eyes set in a pale, delicate face framed by silver hair. The being inside was humanoid, but clearly not human. Her features were elegant and sharp, with pointed ears that reminded him of fantasy elves. But it was her expression that hit him like a physical blow. Pure terror. The look of someone who expected the worst possible outcome from any interaction. She was small, probably no taller than 5 feet, and she was chained. Actual metal chains around her wrists and ankles, connected to rings in the container walls. "Oh God," Jake breathed, stepping back from the window. His phone buzzed again. 2 minutes. 2 minutes felt like forever. Jake paced his small living room, occasionally glancing at the container where he could hear small movements. The being inside was clearly trying to stay quiet, but Jake caught occasional soft sounds that might have been whispered words in a language he didn't recognize. When his door finally opened to admit Dr. Chen and Commander Stone, Jake nearly collapsed with relief. "How are you holding up?" Dr. Chen asked, immediately moving toward the container. "There's someone in there," Jake said. "Chained up. She's terrified." Chen examined the latch mechanism while Commander Stone checked the feeding instructions packet. His face darkened as he read. "Liquid protein supplement twice daily," he read aloud. "Minimal human contact recommended. Subject may attempt communication, but should not be engaged." He crumpled the paper. "They're not even trying to hide what they're doing." Dr. Chen had the container open now, and Jake heard her sharp intake of breath. "It's okay," she said softly, presumably to the being inside. "We're here to help. My name is Sarah, and we're going to get you out of here." The response was a flood of musical words in that unknown language, spoken rapidly and desperately. "She's speaking Vetherin," Dr. Chen said, switching to careful, halting syllables of what must have been the alien's native tongue. Jake watched as Dr. Chen slowly coaxed the being out of the container. She was even smaller than Jake had thought, and the chains had left marks on her wrists. She wore simple gray clothing that looked like it had been designed for easy cleaning rather than comfort. When she saw Jake, she froze, those violet eyes wide with fresh fear. "She's afraid of you, specifically," Dr. Chen translated, after another exchange in Vetherin. "She thinks you're her new owner." The alien girl pressed herself against the wall of Jake's living room, as far from him as the small space allowed. Her violet eyes tracked his every movement, while Dr. Chen worked to remove the chains with a small electronic device that made the metal simply fall away. "Her name is Zara," Dr. Chen explained as she worked. "She's from Vithara, a planet in the Andromeda Spiral. Her world was destroyed by solar radiation when their star became unstable. She's..." Commander Stone was already packing his equipment. "We need to move now. My vehicle is in the alley behind the building." But Zara was shaking her head and backing away from them. She spoke again, pointing at Jake. "She won't come," Dr. Chen said. "She's afraid this is some kind of test, that if she tries to escape, you'll be punished for letting her go." Jake looked at the small alien girl, seeing his own loneliness reflected in her eyes. He understood what it was like to feel trapped, even if his prison had been emotional rather than physical. "Tell her," he said slowly, "that I never wanted to own anyone. I just wanted a friend." Dr. Chen translated, and Zara's expression shifted slightly. She responded with a short sentence. "She says friendship is not possible between predator and prey." "I'm not a predator," Jake said, looking directly at Zara. Even though she couldn't understand his words, maybe she could understand his tone. "I work with computers all day. I eat cereal for dinner. I watch Netflix and fall asleep on my couch. I'm probably the least predatory person in this city." The sound of vehicles outside made them all freeze. Commander Stone peered through the blinds. "3 vans," he reported. "Armed personnel. They're not here to check on merchandise." Dr. Chen grabbed Zara's arm gently. "We have to go now." But Zara was looking at Jake with those enormous violet eyes, and something in her expression had changed. She spoke a few words to Dr. Chen, then walked over to Jake. Up close, he could see that her pale skin had an almost luminescent quality, and her silver hair moved like liquid metal. She reached out slowly and touched his hand with fingers that were surprisingly warm. She says, Dr. Chen translated softly, that loneliness recognizes loneliness, no matter what species, and that, if you're willing to risk your life to help her escape, maybe predator and prey can become something else. The sound of heavy footsteps on the stairs cut through the moment. Commander Stone was at the door with some kind of weapon Jake didn't recognize. Back exit, now, all of us. As they moved toward Jake's bedroom window and the fire escape beyond, Zara stayed close to his side. Her presence was both alien and oddly comforting, like having a piece of starlight walking beside him. Outside, the night air was cold and full of sirens in the distance. Whatever was happening, it was bigger than just one illegal delivery to a lonely software developer. The fire escape rattled under their weight as they climbed down into the alley behind Jake's building. Commander Stone's vehicle turned out to be an armored SUV that looked like something from a science fiction movie, with additional panels and antenna arrays that definitely weren't standard features. Get in, Stone ordered, scanning the alley with night vision goggles. They'll have the building surrounded in minutes. Dr. Chen helped Zara into the back seat while Jake climbed in beside her. The alien girl was shivering, though whether from cold or fear, he couldn't tell. Without thinking, he shrugged off his jacket and offered it to her. She looked at the jacket suspiciously for a moment, then accepted it with a small nod. When she pulled it on, it engulfed her small frame, but she seemed to relax slightly. As Stone drove through the darkened streets of Portland, Dr. Chen tried to explain their situation. The trafficking network we're dealing with is larger than we initially thought, she said, checking her tablet for updates. They have operations on at least 15 planets, and they've been targeting Earth because humans generally don't ask questions about exotic pets. How long has this been going on? Jake asked, watching the city lights blur past his window. First contact was established 3 years ago, Stone said from the driver's seat. Officially, only government officials and select scientists know about alien civilizations. But information like that doesn't stay secret long, especially when there's money to be made. Zara spoke quietly to Dr. Chen, who listened with a deepening frown. She says the traffickers have a processing facility somewhere outside the city. They're holding at least 50 beings from different planets, preparing them for sale. Dr. Chen paused. She also says they're planning something bigger. A mass auction happening tomorrow night. Stone's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. 50 people. They drove in silence for several minutes, heading toward what looked like an industrial area on the outskirts of the city. Jake found himself studying Zara's profile in the dim light from the dashboard. Despite everything she'd been through, there was a strength in her bearing that reminded him of something he couldn't quite place. Dr. Chen, he said finally, can you ask her what her world was like before? The conversation that followed was longer and more animated than any they'd had so far. Zara's voice became musical and wistful as she spoke, occasionally gesturing with her hands to illustrate her words. The Thara was an ocean world, Dr. Chen translated, mostly islands and archipelagos under a purple sky. Her people were scholars and artists, specializing in what she calls memory weaving, a way of preserving experiences in crystalline matrices that could be shared between individuals. She was a memory keeper, Dr. Chen continued, their equivalent of a historian, but more personal. She preserved the experiences of families, important events, cultural traditions. When their star began to die, she was working to save as much of their civilization as possible in portable memory crystals. Jake looked at Zara with new understanding. She was trying to save her entire culture. Zara seemed to sense that they were talking about her. She reached into a small hidden pocket in her gray clothing and pulled out what looked like a piece of amber with light swirling inside it. A memory crystal, Dr. Chen breathed. She still has one. Zara held the crystal out to Jake, speaking softly. She wants you to hold it, Dr. Chen said. She's asking if you understand what it means to try to preserve something precious when everything else is falling apart. Jake took the crystal carefully. It was warm to the touch, and the light inside seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. For just a moment, he could almost sense something else. A feeling of vast open skies and the sound of water on distant shores. "I think I do," he said quietly. Stone's radio crackled with an urgent message. After listening, he pulled the SUV over in the shadow of an abandoned warehouse. "They found my safe house," he announced. "We're on our own until backup arrives from the Seattle office." Dr. Chen was studying her tablet. "The auction is happening tonight, not tomorrow. They moved it up because of our interference. We have maybe 4 hours before 50 innocent beings get sold to the highest bidders." Zara spoke again, her voice urgent and determined. "She knows where the facility is," Dr. Chen translated. "She can guide us there, but she wants something in return." "What?" Jake asked. "She wants your promise that if something happens to her, you'll make sure the memory crystal reaches other veterans. There are refugee communities scattered across the galaxy. That crystal contains the last preserved memories of her homeworld." Jake looked down at the glowing amber in his hands, understanding the weight of what she was asking. This wasn't just a piece of alien technology. It was the soul of an entire civilization, and she was trusting him with it. "I promise," he said, looking directly into her violet eyes. For the first time since he'd seen her in that container, Zara smiled. The processing facility was hidden inside what appeared to be a derelict food processing plant on the outskirts of Portland. From their position in the tree line, Jake could see lights moving inside the building and several vehicles parked around the perimeter. 15 guards, maybe 20, Commander Stone estimated through his binoculars. Heavy security for what's supposed to be a pet auction. Dr. Chen was coordinating with backup units on her encrypted communicator, while Zara studied the building with the intensity of someone memorizing every detail. "A local FBI task force is 20 minutes out," Dr. Chen reported. "But the auction starts in 10 minutes. If we wait for backup, we'll be too late to prevent the sales." Zara spoke urgently to Dr. Chen, pointing toward a service entrance on the south side of the building. "She says there's a way in through the old refrigeration system," Dr. Chen translated. "She was held there for 3 days and memorized the layout. But it's dangerous. The traffickers have weapons that can stun multiple species simultaneously." Jake looked at the memory crystal in his hands, its internal light pulsing gently. 3 days ago, his biggest concern had been finding a pet to keep him company. Now he was holding the preserved soul of an extinct civilization and planning to infiltrate an alien trafficking operation. "We can't wait," he said suddenly. "Those people in there, they're depending on us." Commander Stone looked at him with surprise. "Mr. Martinez, you're a civilian. You don't have to be part of this." "Yes, I do," Jake said, looking at Zara. "She trusted me with the most precious thing she had left. How can I not trust her enough to follow her plan? The infiltration went smoother than Jake had expected. Zara led them through a maze of rusted pipes and abandoned equipment. Her movements silent and sure, despite the darkness. When they reached an observation point overlooking the main floor of the facility, Jake's heart nearly stopped. Dozens of beings from across the galaxy were confined in small enclosures, arranged like merchandise for the viewing pleasure of human buyers who walked among them with tablet computers, making bids and discussing shipping arrangements. The casual cruelty of it made Jake sick, but what struck him most was how different each being was from the others. Some were tall and crystalline, others small and furry, still others that seemed to be made of living light. Yet in their eyes, Jake saw the same thing he'd seen in Zara's face: intelligence, fear, and a desperate hope for freedom. "There," Zara whispered, pointing toward a control panel near the far wall. Security locks for all enclosures. Stone was already moving, his military training evident in every step. Dr. Chen followed with a device that she said would disable the stun weapons. That left Jake and Zara to wait and watch for the signal. "Jake," Zara said softly, speaking his name in accented but clear English. It was the first word she'd spoken in his language, and it sounded like music. "You can speak English?" he asked, amazed. "Little," she said, struggling with the words. "Listen, learn quickly. Want to say thank you for seeing person, not pet." Before Jake could respond, the lights in the facility went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red light, and alarms began to wail. Stone had reached the control panel. What followed was chaos. As enclosure doors opened and beings fled toward the exits, the traffickers tried to maintain control with those alien stun weapons. But Dr. Chen's interference device worked perfectly, turning their technological advantage into useless metal tubes. Jake found himself helping a being that looked like a walking tree navigate toward an exit, while Zara moved among the freed aliens, speaking in multiple languages and helping coordinate their escape. When the FBI task force arrived, they found 53 sentient beings from 12 different worlds, all free and all eager to testify against their captors. The trafficking network was broken, its leaders arrested, and its victims finally safe. 3 weeks later, Jake sat in his apartment with Zara, teaching her to use his computer, while she taught him basic veteran phrases. She'd been granted refugee status on Earth, while authorities worked to locate surviving members of her species. "The memory crystal," she said one evening, speaking English with increasing confidence, "contains more than just history." "What else?" Jake asked. "Hope," she said simply. "When people preserve memories, they believe someone will be there to receive them. Is faith in future, in connection between hearts across time and space." Jake understood. His loneliness hadn't been cured by getting a pet, as he'd originally planned. It had been healed by recognizing loneliness in someone else and choosing to help, even when helping was difficult and dangerous. "Life's greatest lesson," Zara continued, "is that no being is meant to face universe alone. Sometimes, stranger you help becomes family you choose. Sometimes what you think you want is not what heart needs." She was right. Jake had wanted a pet to fill the empty spaces in his life. Instead, he'd found a friend who had filled the empty spaces in his heart. The galaxy had given him exactly what he needed, just not in the form he'd expected. As they sat together, watching Earth's single moon rise through his apartment window, Jake reflected on how much his life had changed. He was no longer just a lonely software developer. He was someone's friend, someone's protector, someone who had helped preserve the memory of an entire world. And Zara was no longer just a refugee or a trafficking victim. She was a memory keeper who had found a new world to call home and a new family to protect. The universe was vast and often cruel, but it was also full of unexpected connections and impossible friendships. Sometimes the best things in life came disguised as the worst things that could happen to you. And sometimes, asking for what you wanted was actually the first step toward getting what you needed. True companionship isn't about ownership or control, but about mutual respect, understanding, and the willingness to help others even when it's difficult. Loneliness isn't cured by acquiring something, but by recognizing our shared need for connection and choosing to reach across differences to build genuine relationships. Sometimes, what we think we want isn't what our hearts actually need, and the universe has a way of providing exactly what will help us grow, even if it comes in unexpected forms.